for the study laboratory for the study of culture, borders, and gender. We welcome you to the 6th lecture of this year's lecture series within the ETHNOGRAFEIN lecture seminar that we organize in our lab. This year's topic is about borders. Just remind us, the whole title of the series is Borders and Boundaries Revisited, Anthropological Perspectives and Public Engagement. So today we're very happy to have with us Dr. Rozita Dimova, Professor Rozita Dimova, that she will give a presentation titled Transgressing Realities, Desire and Borders in Southern Balkans. Let me just give you a few information about Rozita and particularly about some of her work that focuses on borders. Rozita Dimova is by training a social anthropologist and holds a PhD from Stanford University in the US. She has been the recipient of the Robert Texture Award, and her academic career includes positions at the Max Planck Institute for Social Anthropology in Germany, in the Free and Humboldt universities in Berlin, Germany. She has been an associate professor at Ghent University in Belgium, and she is a board member at the Center for Advanced and Interdisciplinary Research in North Macedonia and a research fellow in Hungary, where she is right now, actually this year, as she just told us. Her work focuses on materiality, ethno-nationalism, and migration, with notable publications like Ethno-Baroque and Border Porosities, 2 monographs. Let me just give you a few words and link our topic on borders with Rozita's work. Her latest monograph was published by Manchester University Press in 2021, titled Border Porosities, Movements of People, Objects, and Ideas in the Southern Balkans. This is a book which argues that border between Greece and North Macedonia is a complex and contested space influenced by political, cultural, and economic factors. She uses the metaphor of porosity, which literally relates to how permeable and porous something is due to tiny holes and or voids. And porosity, is presented as a complex process that depends on various circumstances and can transform over time. This book highlights the need to critically analyze the processes of renaming, nationalism, and governance in the context of border studies. Before I give the floor to Rozita, I need to mention another edited volume that she has edited with Olga Dimitriou, published in 2019 by Manchester University Press, entitled The Political Materialities of Borders, New Theoretical Directions, where the central idea of this volume is that borders are crucial zones for examining the interaction between material and immaterial. And this is the space, the domain where the borders acquire political significance. Analyzing how these elements interact at borders reveals the emergence of political structures and meanings. Very briefly, Rozita, thank you very much. Over to you. We're happy to have you.
Okay, thank you, Janos. Thank you for the generous introduction. Can you hear me well? Because I don't have the attached microphone, so it's the laptop's microphone. Is it clear? Can you hear me well? Good. Thank you again for the invitation. I'm glad to see familiar faces, and I'm glad to talk about the research that some of you heard about it, when I was in Thessaloniki the last time, which was 2016. But now I want to talk about these productive aspects of borders, and especially to zoom onto the casino space. And I have some very bad quality PowerPoint, some photos, which are not my own, but taken from the promotional material of these hotel casinos in the border zone. But it's not necessary. So maybe at the end of the presentation, just to give an illustration of the Princess and Flamingo hotel casinos. We can open it up. But now I don't want to share screen and go into these technical details because I'm very technically literate. So I'll just stick to my presentation, read my, ethnography, the ethnographic vignettes, and then in the discussion part of the colloquium, we can talk more about the, certain aspects of what I said, and also maybe open few visuals to see them. So I will start directly with the ethnography. Vasilis is a 58-year-old farmer from a village near Kilkis in northern Greece. He owns a large tract of land, a range of agricultural machinery consisting of dozens of tractors, combine harvesters, sprayers, and so on. His farm employs around 50 workers at the peak of the season, and he's one of the most prominent landowners and grain producers in the Kilkis prefecture. Committed to hard work since early childhood, Vasilis is also a passionate gambler. Every weekend, he crosses the border and spends 2 nights and 2 days in the hotel casino that is only 50 meters from the state border crossing between Greece and North Macedonia, Evzoni Bogorodica. This is the official name of the crossing. I saw Vasilis only briefly as he was playing poker in early September 2014. At the beginning, he kept on smiling and glancing at the corner where I and a friend were sitting. He became agitated after losing several rounds. It was clear to us that we had to leave his table and stop paying attention to his game. I never had the possibility of interviewing Vasilis. When I introduced myself to the casino manager and explained my research to him, I was warned that I was not allowed to disturb any of the customers, and I could not conduct interviews and conversation with the casino visitors, or I could do that only outside of the casino premises, not inside. So this proved to be impossible in relation to Vasilis and the regulars who played for larger sums of money, as they were always absorbing in their gaming activities at the poker or blackjack tables. So my main source of information, I'm talking about the methodological hurdles and constraints I encounter in doing such research on casinos and gambling, because this is a very secretive and touchy subject. So my main source, therefore, of information remained former employees in the casino who used to work as croupiers, as well as women from Greece who would visit the casino once a month and were not really the so-called hardcore gamblers like Vasilis, who came more recreationally to come to the casino to have a meal, free meal. If you spend 20 euros, you get a free coupon for a meal. There were Greek bands playing, always there are Greek bands playing on the weekends. So it's just an entertainment, not an addictive activity like Vasilis. So Stefka, a former croupier, explained that Vasilis was a peculiar little man, or in Macedonian language, čudno malo čoveč, a very pejorative expression, who had his own rituals and did not like strangers at the table. During her work in the casino, Stefka came across many people like Vasilis. Many of the visitors who spent the most money at the casino were actually farmers and hardworking self-employed craftsmen. They greatly outnumbered the really rich people, bogatashi, or those who had a lot of money. And after getting to know Vasilis and several other regular visitors from the villages in Greek Macedonia, Stefka described their urge to gamble and spend the weekends in the hotel casinos as an uncontrollable drive that takes them into another dimension. Moreover, the casino enabled many of the visitors from Greece to transgress the everyday reality of their mundane lives. In Stefka's words, they are transported into a different world where they become different persons. They are addicted to this change of reality. I think they go through their work week by dreaming of the casino and the moment when they enter this other dimension and get to be someone else. And it was precisely this yearning or this drive that Stefka described when talking about Vasilis' gambling addiction that intrigued me most. I tried to really grasp and understand what is behind this yearning and drive. you know, to go regularly to the casino. And to remain fixated on the gaming, the cards, the croupier, and that luck that they are always waiting for. So I had many questions related to this yearning to gamble and spend the weekends in the casino. How important is the border for engendering and maintaining this act of transgressing from one reality to another? What is the impact of these regular gaming escapades on Vasily's family and lifestyle and work? And I have to admit that I did not get answers to many of these questions because it's not easy to talk about these things, and plus I wasn't allowed. However, I had a whole range of questions that motivated me to at least try to tackle some of these aspects. And in the course of my research at the border, which spanned, you know, for quite a long time, from 2010 until 2018, I actually spent a lot of time in the municipality of Gevgelia, or what is popularly known as Balkan Las Vegas, where many different hotel casinos have been emerging, you know, where it's a really interesting space to visit, but it's a space that is completely detached from the town of Gevgelia. It's a different zone. So this is the border belt where several different casinos, the two largest are the Flamingo Casino and Princess Casino, but also inside Gevgelia, in the urban space of Gevgelia, there is Apollonia Casino, Senator. So it's really a place where many Greek visitors come to, you know, spend their money and have fun. So the small town of Gevgelia, and I think I talked about this in more detail many years ago, the town of Gevgelia has been transformed because of the Greek citizens, not only the presence of the casinos and the hotels, but also the town itself, the farmers market, the supermarkets, you know, the hairdressing salons, the beauty parlors. It's a real transformation of a very provincial small town of 15,000 people into a place that nowadays, things changed during the COVID crisis, but literally, Gevgelia had no unemployment. People from Skopje, from Tetovo, from Bitola would go to Gevgelia to find employment because of the high salaries, because the casinos and the beauty parlors would pay much more than, you know, similar places in other towns or cities in North Macedonia. So, but the only condition to get an employment is to speak Greek language. So in addition to the casinos and hotels, the hairdressing salons, the dental offices, there is a sprout of language schools in Gevgelia as well, especially for Greek language. So basically, my research, you know, in Gevgelia and the surrounding area has become, you know, has focused not only on the casinos and the hotels, but also on the other consumer kind of spaces, especially the dental and medical practices that have been emerging, and also the farmers market, and how I was really interested in how citizens, people from Greece would come during the weekends to buy essential groceries and produces, from tomatoes, you know, toilet paper, everything, because of the much cheaper prices in Gevgelia than it is in Greece. Especially, you know, diapers, baby diapers, they were really sought object, you know, to buy in Gevgelia. So as I said, this small town has literally been transformed because of the presence of Greek people, citizens who have been visiting for the past 15 to 20 years. It's a trend that has been going on for a while, and looking for bargains and entertainment. And I conducted most of my ethnographic fieldwork with consumers, not like Vasilis, those heavily addicted, but with those who come for shopping and entertainment and who end up going to the casino at the end, who are not so sucked into the very gambling kind of activity. So I've actually made friends with several women. I named them Eleni, Sofia, who would come especially for hairdressing and beauty services, you know, consuming beauty treatments. and also dental interventions. So it was really interesting to see how, and I would quote one of my interlocutors, how liberating it was to have the border nearby, because it enabled them lifestyle that was otherwise unaffordable and unattainable in Greece. So for Sofia, and I will go back to Vasily in the casino space, but I just want to mention that for Sofia, you know, what the crisis, the 2009 financial crisis and the austerity measures did to her lifestyle really affected her sense of being, feeling like a real woman, not being able to afford regular hairdressing visits or beauty parlors. So crossing the border once a month was a liberating and very emancipatory, feeling. But so every weekend, the hotel casinos near the border and in the town of Gevgelia are packed with visitors from Greece. Some arrive for a one-day visit and some stay over the weekend. As I said, the presence of Greek visitors is visible everywhere. The farmers market, the main shopping street in Gevgelia, the cafes and restaurants, dental medical practices. So again, it's a bargain, seeking. The significantly cheaper prices in Gevgelia have encouraged many to cross the border in their search for bargains. For many, crossing the border constitutes a symbolic act of stepping into a fantasy world traversed by desires that transgress the limits of one's reality as well as the limits of national borders. I don't want to dwell and go into the whole theoretical kind of realm of theorizing desire, although I have tried to do that in my book and draw on Lacan's psychoanalytic approach to desire, who argues that desire is inextricably linked to language as it enters an infant in a very divisive fashion. So for Lacan, desire is closely related to language and the series of identifications that creates foundational loss that constitutes the subjects. In other words, for Lacan, desire is this never-ending, unsatiable, unsatisfied quest for compensating for that loss that we, carry within us. And it's never, that's why desire is never-ending kind of, I would say, feeling, sensation, because you never can reach or satisfy that foundational or fundamental sense of void and loss that we carry inside. So I don't want to kind of burn you and bother you too much with this Lacanian approach to desire. I just want to mention that, that's why when I talk about the casinos, I use the colloquial expression that, for instance, Stefka and Vasilis used, not desire, želba in Macedonian, but rather yearning, longing, addiction. These were the expressions that were used to explain Vasilis' strong attachment or such an addictive, hypnotic, repetitive need to visit the casino every weekend and to spend a lot of money and a lot of time at the blackjack or the poker table. So in this chapter or in this presentation, I'm more interested in the role of the border in engendering desire or yearning, as I mentioned, which, pays strong attention to desire in this subjectification process and the formation of the sense of the self. Specifically, those who cross the border following their desires, their yearnings to engage in something which has been made possible by the border and by their imaginations, by their desires, they see the border as an active agent in this. So, in other words, so I identified this quite unique element intertwined with the gaming desires of those Greek citizens who visit the casinos, namely the desire to, to in a way restore that wounded, sense of self, of pride that for many felt damaged with the austerity measures and the financial crisis. Many felt that the financial crisis and what happened in Greece after 2009, and especially with the EU-imposed austerity measures, felt that it dehumanized them, that it took something from deep inside. So basically, for many of them, the way to deal with this dehumanization, the border was the agent that allowed them some sense of recuperation or, revalidation. So the economic hardship in Greece in that period between 2010 and 2017, which was the period of my research, basically, really revealed this sense of transgression of social positions by receiving exceptional treatment and pampering by the employees in the casino or hotels. The employees were trained and were especially focused on treating the Greek consumers, customers, gamers, with special attention to give them precisely that sense of, uniqueness and of, being treated really well and being valued. So evidently, the initial trigger for Vasilis and for his compatriots who came to gamble was the desire to gamble. They're just addicted to gambling. And if you want to read more on this, great analysis is written by Natasha Schul, 2014. It's a book entitled Addiction by Design, Machine Gambling in Las Vegas. She's also a social anthropologist who did her research fieldwork in Las Vegas, and he focuses on this, what she calls the machine zone. She focuses on slot machines and looks at the logic of this hypnotic addiction generated by the slot machines and their designs. She calls this, as I said, the machine zone, where the compulsive need to play is driven not by desire to win, as many of us would assume, but rather by the urge to stay in that machine zone. One of our interlocutors describes the zone, it's like being in the eye of the storm. Your vision is clear on the machine in front of you, but the whole world is spinning around you and you cannot really hear anything. You aren't really there. You're with the machine and that's all you are with. End of quote. So although Vasilis did not stick only to slot machines, he did that on the side, but not really his main focus. He shuffled between the poker and the blackjack tables. The flashy interior of the casinos with the suspension of time and space due to the slot machines created a whole universe inside of the casinos. So Schul's ethnographic research conducted in Las Vegas reveals that the rise of the machine gambling experience has evolved in step with the technological innovation. The power of the machine stems from, this addiction, this drive stems from the intersection of the technological configuration of gambling activities and the experience of gamblers. Today's standard gambling machines, she writes, are complex devices assembled on a digital platform from 12,000 or more individual parts, a process that involves up to 300 people, including script writers, graphic artists, marketers, mathematicians, mechanical video software engineers, not to mention designers of auxiliary components such as touch screens, bill validators, and machine cabinets. So this technological complexity of a slot machine is the secret behind its addictive and mesmeric power. And, anthropologists have been captivated and have been interested in gaming and gambling for a while. In the 1967, the first study by Goffman, then, Malaby, Geertz, they have all published and written stuff on gambling. And for them, basically, they have, especially Geertz and Goffman, they have dismissed slot machines as, I quote, degraded asocial form of play, not worthy of cultural analysis and lacking social connection. And this is Goffman. Yet, as Schul argues, the slot machine gambling in the US has risen 70% since 1980s. So, as I mentioned, this rise is going hand in hand with the technological innovations and technological development. And as one of Schul's interlocutors put it, quote, "You can erase it all at the machines. You can even erase yourself," contradicting the popular understanding of gambling as an expression of the desire to get something for nothing. According to her interlocutor, gambling with the slot machine is to be searching for nothingness itself. You're not searching for win or for getting something. So I think many of you probably are familiar with the study that Maladi did in Creta, in Chania. Do I pronounce the name correctly? Chania? Chania? You know,
Chania.
Yeah, Chania. I mean, it's a fascinating study. I really enjoyed, reading, and I build a lot on it, that he coins this term contingency, and he argues that, people that gaming and gambling in Chania is actually tells us how people confront risk in their lives. He shows the dynamics of gambling, risk, fate, uncertainty, and luck, and how they reflect in other aspects of gamblers' lives, from courtship and mortality to state bureaucracy and national identity. Making a strong connection between Chania's backgammon cafes, card clubs, hidden gambling rooms, and real life, Malaby suggests that we need to look at contingency beyond normative assumptions and see how the politics of contingency provides a groundwork for assessing the struggles over accountability that characterizes a surprisingly large part of everyday life. In other words, to make things simpler, Malaby is arguing that the state, the role that the state plays in the production of contingency and uncertainty is crucial, precisely because the state is so involved with these state-sponsored lottery games, which are probably the most prolific and most prominent, and he talks about this, about Lotto, the largest Greek lottery, that the slogan that it has, "It puts your fate, your mira, in your hands." In other words, this poster for Lotto neatly invokes a powerful and inevitable destiny upon one's action to take part in the lottery. The state is thus colonizing, he argues, an approach towards the future, saying chillingly that to have a chance at your destiny, you must play the state's game, play the state's lottery. So I think there is something really very provocative and interesting in Malaby's argument that the state is really involved in how gamblers relate to these games and the notion of risk and uncertainty and contingency. The slot machine gambling described in Schul's work, in contrast, is not a conduit of risk that allows for socially meaningful dealing with risks and uncertainties. Rather, on the contrary, the slot machine becomes a reliable mechanism for securing a zone of insulation from a human world that is otherwise experienced as capricious, discontinuous, insecure. The continuity of machine gambling holds worldly contingencies in a kind of abeyance, granting an otherwise elusive zone of certainty. This is what the relationship between the gambler and the machine is. Now, Stefka's explanation of Vasily's addiction identified the entire casino as a zone of insulation where the gamblers become disoriented and lose sense of reality. She pointed out that for many of these people, the casinos are like a fantasy land, completely detached from the rest of the world or the town of Gevgelia. The interiors are windowless, flashy, and loud, so the visitor is immediately transported into another dimension. It is like an escape from the harsh reality that many of us are experiencing, explained Stefka. However, there is a danger in this escape as the machines or the games hypnotically suck you in, and it is impossible to stop playing. You continue on autopilot until you spend all your money, and by the time you realize there's nothing left. And Unlike the experience of the people in Schul's analysis, the casinos in Gevgelia gave the gamblers a unique sense of superiority due to their Greek citizenship, the main drive of that being that feel-good feeling, you know. The regulars, as I mentioned earlier, are pampered by the casino employees, and as many of them are, and I quote Stefka, seljaci, which is a pejorative name for rural villagers, you know, that backward people. Coming from, you know, Kilkis or Boden or, you know, small rural area, who work hard on their land the entire week, so the weekend visits to the casinos give them a sense of importance, class, and luxury that they don't get to experience during their regular lives, everyday mundane lives. So the casino thus becomes a fantasy space where they project and enact a social role and class identity that does not exist in real life. The more they spend, the more special benefits they receive from the casino in terms of special massages, special culinary surprises brought to their rooms, spa treatments, presents, escort services, and so on. Stefka described that each casino has such an elaborate system policy to attract or to kind of maintain this attraction and the addiction of the regulars, that it is a real science, in her words. So the casino, I quote Stefka, plays on this card to make losers in real life feel like kings in the casino. You have no idea what kind of jerks, and she used this local term, dibetsi, it's a Macedonian word that I cannot translate it anyway, in any other way but jerks, you know, come to the casino. They have no sense of culture whatsoever, but still you have to make them feel superior in every sense. I often felt that being in, and she used the name Macedonia because this was in 2014, gives them an even more pleasure to act superior. We as Macedonians are not allowed to mention the name Macedonia in the casino, and this gives many of them a great sense of pleasure. You know, I won't go into the name conflict. I think I've talked about it too much, and we all know the resolution in 2018 with the Prespa agreement. Macedonia was renamed former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia was renamed North Macedonia, and Greece agreed to recognize separate Macedonian nation and Macedonian language. So my feeling is that this Prespa agreement really loosened and relaxed the political formal relationships between the two countries. And, you know, but as I mentioned, my research was done prior to 2018, the signing of the Prespa agreement. So the feelings and the emotions of the people, the employees in the casinos were different. And although Stefka complained about the treatment of the gamblers, the Greeks, you know, towards the others, you know, the Macedonians working in the casino, actually, after we became quite close and met regularly, it was clear to me that the main complaint that she had was related to the employment policy in the casino and not towards the customers, because she described this total sense of detachment from reality while working at night. She says, you work during the night and sleep during the day, and this is day after day. I earned a lot, but after 8 years in the casino, I felt like a zombie. It was obvious to me that I had to leave or I would go mad. Now I have my own fruit-producing small business, and I like the feeling of control over my time, something that she really missed while she worked at the casino. So as I mentioned earlier, you know, as a result of this wave of visitors from Greece, Gevgelia has become one of the most prosperous towns in the country and has the lowest unemployment rate. Now it's coming back again after the corona, but the financial prosperity brought by the casinos in this town appeared to be, you know, negotiated or tempered with the with a compromise with the Greek visitors regarding the name Macedonia. Nowhere in the restaurants or cafe menus would you find anything related to traditional Macedonian salad or Macedonian, specialties. Everything was named then local specialties. And again, this is prior to 2018. Stefka explained with a gesture of defeat the absence of any nationalistic outbursts or incidents in the casinos are due to our lenience, that the fact that we have to swallow our pride, national pride, and let let Macedonia and Macedonians become unsayable and unmentionable. And this feeling of being forced to keep up with the requests and as she calls tantrums or ispadi of the visitors from Greece was mentioned by several of my interlocutors in Gevgelia and Bitola, who also identified this pre-existing sense of superiority present in the communication between the Macedonian employees and the Greek visitors or the consumers. And Yanis, how much time do I have? I want to move to the section of the beauty salons and hairdressing. Do I have time to move that?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
So now,
go ahead.
I won't indulge too much, but I want to contrast an entirely different, opposite practice of what Vasilis would come to gamble only. He comes to the casino with an intention to stay there and play, poker or blackjack. But I want to, and I think I talked about this when I was at the colloquium the last time, but there are women who plan their time entirely different. They come for one day, they plan and they organize their visits to Gevgelia from early in the morning, and they actually have a very calculated and pragmatic plan on how to benefit from the lower prices, and their trips and consumption schedule are very controlled and planned. And yet these well-planned trips also generate new desires, new yearnings that are not a simple search for bargains. They start as such. The official excuse or vindication is it's cheaper over there, so that's why we go. However, in this process of crossing the border and going to buy a cheaper goods, new desires emerge, which in a way, again, allow people to deflect and deal with the consequences of the financial crisis and the financial problems that many encountered after 2009. So, one of the ladies, the women that I became close to, I met her in a beauty parlor in the Hotel Princess in Gevgelia, and she was undergoing heavy hair removal treatment and explained in perfect English that this was part of her monthly treatment, which consisted of a full body wax, hair removal, an electromassage, algae wrap, plaster Bermuda treatment against cellulite, facial treatment followed by a donkey milk exfoliation, pedicure, manicure package. This took a total of 4 hours and the total cost was 100 euros. And she explained to me that in Thessaloniki, such a treatment would easily cost, 400 or 500 euros. So it's incomparably cheaper. And she said that she used to be, she worked as she had a PR company and used to represent one of the casino hotels, their advertisement campaign in Greece. So she actually had very comfortable lifestyle and was able to afford many of these treatments in Thessaloniki. However, with the financial crisis, since 2009, the budget for her beauty treatments could go, prior to that, it could go up to 300, 400 euros per month. She explained that, for her, this was just part of her being. Since she was 14, her mother took her to a beauty parlor for hair removal, and ever since she was an almost evangelically committed to going to the hairdresser, to the beauty parlor. It was part of her life. But with the financial problems, she had to, you know, downsize her business. She suffered greatly. There were problems in, you know, the payments of her new Audi X SUV and her apartment that she purchased in the Panorama, a quite upscale neighborhood in Thessaloniki. So basically, she had to change her lifestyle drastically. She couldn't give up on these beauty cures. You know, this was part of what made her, as she said, a real woman. So that's why crossing the border and going to, you know, the Princess beauty parlor was a savior. She could afford this once a month for a significantly cheaper price. And she told me that she's so grateful that the proximity of the she's so grateful for the proximity of the border that has enabled her to maintain a lifestyle that she feels she deserves and that she has had for so many years. And you know, actually, she told me that she could not imagine or foresee how her life would look like if she wasn't near the border and she wasn't able to do this monthly or even more frequent visits to the beauty salon. And Eleni considered taking care of her body and herself as this ultimate form of agency. And in my publications, I have actually, when talking about this ethnographic vignette, I applied the feminist critique, saying that this is all part of the, you know, these disciplinary practices of keeping the female body beauty, you know, with these prevalent views that women always need to, you know, that the female body or appearance is always deficient and always needs to be, you know, maintained or fixed. But it was evident for me that for many of these women, this was a sense of empowerment and agency, which was meaningful to their daily lives. So, you know, as much as I align and I, you know, consider the feminist critique, I also feel and I insist that the empowerment element and the agency that crossing the border and going to this beauty parlor gives to these women is crucial. It's really important, and it shouldn't be dismissed at the expense of the feminist critique and criticizing these middle class practices of maintaining feminine beauty. And you know, and then another interlocutor, which you know, unlike Eleni, who is maybe in the upper middle class, Sofia, she works in the post office, in a post office in Thessaloniki. Her husband lost her job with in 2011. She was the only provider, you know, 2 children. So for her, planning the monthly visits to Gevgelia to do the purchases in at the farmer's market, in the local supermarket, to go to the to her hairdresser whom she visits for now almost 10 years, you know, the same dye, the same color dyeing, the same styling, you know, is again a ritual. It's a ritualized experience. And usually after these shopping sprees or the planned shopping day in Gevgelia, it's 3 friends who go to Gevgelia every month. They end up in one of the casinos. It's usually Flamingo, the Flamingo Hotel Casino, where they have, you know, they go to the beauty parlor, they have manicure or pedicure or some other cure. And after that, they go have, you know, some, as they say, slight gambling at the slot machines so they can earn a free coupon for free dinner. They have a free dinner. There is a usually Greek band playing every weekend, every Saturday. They dance, they're cheerful, and then they leave back home. So it's a matter of having one day in the month where you can go do a practical and very pragmatic planning, shopping, you know, something that is calculated way ahead, but then also allowing yourself to enjoy beauty treatments and also to have some fun in the casino, to gamble, to laugh. It's really, as Sophia described this, this is something that I do for myself. This is my treat, and I have to be able to afford this. And again, she stressed that the proximity of the border, the possibility to do this on a monthly basis, and it's not, as she said, this is not just saving money and being seeking for bargains, but it's rather about allowing yourself to be, as the expression they used, to feel like a woman, to be able to afford things that otherwise, are unaffordable. And so basically, what I want to mention in this section of the beauty consumption and entertainment, again, there is this element of, I would call it neo-colonial kind of treatment of the girls or the beauticians or the hairdressers who work in the parlors, who are also trained to be exceptionally polite and to give good service to the customers. As most of them are fluent in Greek, there is this casual chat permeated with trust and confidence. The usual, I mean, there are these relationships that are built over time. And as Sophia stressed, neither the price nor the quality of the service could compare with the beauty salons in Thessaloniki. She proudly recounts that the regular hairstyling and beauty cures, as Eleni did, are imperative for her, because this is something that she needs to do for maintaining a sense of humanity and feeling like a real woman. She said, I quote her, "Having my hair dyed and cut by a professional regularly is equally important to me as my regular thyroid checkup. I just can't imagine not putting up on my makeup or curling my hair several times a week. Earlier, I used to go to the hairdresser every week, but now I do the cutting myself at home. The monthly dyeing and treatment in Gevgelia, however, is non-negotiable. This is what makes me feel like a woman. I cannot envision that lack of money would ever make me give up the care for myself. This is all that is left. I owe that to myself, and I'm doing it for myself, not for my husband or the environment. If I neglect my appearance, there is nothing left. That's what makes me be myself." So this sense of sense of self and being able to maintain that notion of power to maintain your sense of beauty and take care of yourself was really fundamental for many of the women that I talked to. Both Sophia and Eleni mentioned the level of trust that existed between them and the girls, the beauticians and the hairdressers. Patience, politeness, expertise of the employees on the Macedonian side of the border were highly praised by most of the Greek customers who crossed the border to obtain beauty services. Again, I mean, we can see that there is this asymmetry, or even, kind of neo-colonial hegemony in terms of the Greek citizens being maybe financially more powerful, coming to consume, and then maybe somehow the polite and somehow submissive attitude of the Macedonian employees, in order to kind of satisfy their customers and make them come back again, was really an interesting dynamic. So again, the economic prosperity of Gevgelia's municipality, due to the border's proximity and the visitors from Greece, bears, and I want to connect this with other border regions, because we can see similarities in many border areas. Even here in Hungary, close to the Austrian border is just 3 kilometers away. So there are the same dynamics of Austrians coming to Hungary for beauty, hairdressing treatments, dental services as well, although it's not as pronounced as it's in the case of Greece and North Macedonia. But another interesting book that I would recommend for you working on borders and casinos and consumerism is Jessica Catalino's book on Native American gaming. It's a very interesting analysis of how the Seminole tribe in South Florida has been actually transformed. The whole economy has been transformed with this sovereignty right of the Native American nations or tribes in the US to keep to be allowed to have gambling businesses and to keep all the profits and the revenues within their tribes. So basically, Catalino, she describes how this small tribe, the Seminole tribe in South Florida, managed by opening up many casinos and gambling places to transform its own dynamics, to ensure, as she writes, contrary to the expectations that money from the casinos would erode cultural distinctiveness, gaming has also subsidized and catalyzed Seminole cultural production. Although many Seminole grandparents worry about how to convince their grandchildren to sew patchwork clothing or to speak a Seminole language, now that young people can afford Nintendos and cars. But what she actually emphasizes in her analysis is that the transformation really relates to medical provisions, medical services. All the members of the Seminole tribe have medical insurance, something that we know in the US is a rarity. Many people cannot afford that. Many people get scholarships and possibilities to get education without going into loans. We know that the students in the US are so highly in debt, they have to take all these huge loans. So indeed, the prosperity of the younger generation in this Seminole tribe in South Florida has been transformed by the gaming and the gambling industry in this region, although it has also brought a lot of vices, alcoholism, addictive gambling among the young native people as well. But yet, it's interesting how to, this ambiguity or this contradiction, this conundrum between gaining positive aspects or positive gains from the gambling business, like in the Seminole case, and having prosperity of the tribe. The same thing in Gevgelia, you get prosperity or economic prosperity, advancement, development of the whole region. But on the other hand, as many of the people mentioned, you have to make exceptions and you have to retreat when it comes to national pride and national identity. So you just assume, or you just go along with the fact that you do not ever talk about Macedonia or about being Macedonian, although things have changed, as I said, after 2018. But what Sophia mentioned to me, I quote her, "We should be grateful to the presence of the border. I even dare say, thank you, border. There is nothing more patriotic than this, keeping young people in the country and providing wealth and opportunity to work and live in their own country." And as I said, many people from other cities and urban spaces in North Macedonia used to come and still go to Gevgelia because there is a lot of employment opportunities and because the salaries are much higher. And so basically, again, going back, revisiting the topic of desire, the border indeed generates different desires, and desire is often a complex set of social, political, and economic possibilities and vulnerabilities created by and around the existence of borders, particularly in terms of people's desires to live different sorts of lives, gendered, sexed, in terms of class and social differentiation, as we saw with Vasilis. So we see the productive side of borders, as I mentioned earlier, Sophia confidently asserted that the monthly trips to Gevgelia have enabled her to live a different sort of life. Moreover, they mean survival to her. her life would look entirely different, in her own words, and life would be much more difficult if she did not have these opportunities created by the border. And when I asked Sophia about the casinos and gambling, she confessed that she was not really a gambler, as the feeling of losing hard-earned money made her feel uneasy. But over the years, she has seen some really hardcore gamblers, regular visitors from the nearby region in northern Greece who spend all their money earned mainly from agriculture, which is a completely and vastly different experience from her own when she goes to the casino. And now, so I just wanted to contrast these different views and perceptions of what the casino space provides for people. For Vasilis, it's an insulation, it's a transgression into a different dimension where he feels that he's able to transcend his class and social kind of constraints and identity. For Sophia, it is about feeling herself pampered, taken care of, a woman who takes care of her family, finds bargains, but also allows herself to feel good. So to conclude, you know, it's obvious that the border creates new desires among people who occupy different subject positions. Vasilis is drawn to this casino universe by his urge to transpose himself into this different reality. In this act, he also transgresses the limits of his social and class reality, which is possible only by feeling superior to the employees in the casino, who, in Stefka's words, the croupier who worked in the Flamingo casino, I have to put up with every request these village people might have. Sophia and Eleni have seen the border as a factor enabling them to respond to the financial crisis and to use it as a source of empowerment. Sophia sees the border trips as strategies of survival and adaptation to the crisis that has left her husband almost without any income and have prevented her children from enjoying a good life, as she said. So again, this middle-class female understanding of access to normal beauty cures and empowerment begs for a feminist critique. As I mentioned earlier, I want to stress that again, that I'm not trying to romanticize this search, this quest for beauty treatments and beauty cures just as an agency, a form of agency and empowerment. You know, we've seen, I mean, since the 60s, actually, we are aware that these feminist, these feminine beauty practices cannot be separated from the cultural and social practices of that glorify female beauty on the one hand and define the female body, as I mentioned earlier, as deficient and in constant need of improvement and correction. And yet, I suggest that it is also important to acknowledge the productive aspect of the border that enables these women to maintain sense of agency, ability to deflect the effects of the financial crisis. Vasilis, Sophia, Eleni, and the other people that I worked with during my research demonstrated this productive aspect of power in their expectations of exceptional treatment by the Macedonian employees. The power is further intensified by the proximity of the border, where prestige is attached to historical and political elements that resemble multiple, as I said, neo-colonial arrangements between different parties, the consumers, the employees, the state, transnational investors, owners of hotels and casinos. I didn't go into that because it's a very murky and unclear, you know, I don't have reliable information. Things change regularly, but the investors or the owners of the Princess Casino, the Turkish mafia guy who has sold his shares to another guy from Azerbaijan, and the Flamingo, it's a Swedish with Bosnian, a Swedish person, but born in Bosnia, and then, you know, the co-ownership and co-investment into this casino hotel business is a very complicated and very murky business that I rather avoid to talk because I don't have fully reliable information on that. nonetheless, I think the multiple players, or let's say stakeholders, in how the border actually acquires its own life and productive aspect of generating these different desires and yearning for different subjects, situated at different class, gendered, and age positions, is really interesting and worthwhile to study. And again, I will just like to conclude again that Stefka mentioned in one of the conversations. She said to me, these Greeks, and I apologize for her language, but she says these Greeks, they pretend, they think they're European, but they're not European. And, they pretend to be a cradle of Europe, democracy, but actually they're like Turks, they're like Ottomans. There you see so many backward, nazadni, that's the term she used, elements in how they behave. So again, this dynamic between larger transnational, dynamics players, EU, the role of the austerity measures, how the Eleni, Sofia, many of them were actually anti-European and against these austerity measures that were imposed on Greece, and unjustly put people in different, isolated positions, is again something that is conducive and that defines how the border produces and reproduces and reenacts all these different desires around different practices. So I will stop here and give more space for discussion, questions and comments and feedback. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Rozita, for really demonstrating how ethnography can really show the richness and the multi-level and the different aspects of borders. Yes, very, very, very exciting things. I will just open the space for discussion, questions, comments. So whoever wants, feel free to unmute, or because of the number of people, please raise your digital hand so that we know, yes, who is posing questions. So, yes, please feel free. I see Dimitris Kataevtsis. Dimitri.
Hello all. Mrs. Dimova, I have to say that this is one of the most wonderful presentations I have ever seen in this series of ethnographic fieldworks. I appreciate your work. It's really, really amazing, the fact that you combine the gender, the economy, the transnational, many things together in one beautiful ethnography. Bravo to you. It's in my opinion, it's I'm glad to read your works also. My question is the following. When you say that many Greeks go to the casinos, mostly males, if I heard well. At the same time, in the same Saturdays and Sundays, we have another flow of North Macedonians coming to Greece, to big business centers and make shopping. This is another kind of ritual. Yeah. How can you explain that? Okay, there are people who go gambling, Greeks to go to North Macedonia. It's a little bit, let's say it could be some more exotic, some kind of a thing. But the other flow, if you have heard it, because I observe it, how can you explain it? Wow. If you know it?
Not that I'm aware of that another flow, but I'm participating in it, and especially with this rise of these Novorish people from Macedonia who purchase real estate in Halkidiki. I mean, this is a whole social group of a network of people who have their own Facebook, Viber groups that they communicate. It's a whole group of people who take care of each other's properties, and they, it's really an interesting dynamic on the other side of the border. And your question is indeed relevant, how to explain it. I maybe, I am biased, but I explain it in a Lacanian sense. It's always the alterity, you know, it's the otherness, being triggered and being drawn by something across the border. So that phantasmic propensity, that faculty of the border to initiate, you know, to kind of make, okay, in the case of the Greek coast, you know, the Halkidiki area, you know, owning an apartment there, this is a very, how to say, tangible dream of so many people, not only in Macedonia, in North Macedonia, but also in Bulgaria and in, you know, in Serbia, and in, this is something that has become a trend, a mark of upscaling, becoming socially, you know, mobile and powerful. But indeed, you know, as a child, I remember when I was growing up, and I think I mentioned this the last time at the colloquium, we used to go once a year to Leptokaria or Paralia, you know, this kind of a Yugoslav-centered places, you know, camping. But for us, going to Thessaloniki or to Larissa, shopping, especially for school, you know, backpack and school tools that I need, notebooks, that was so important for me. I mean, going to school on September 1st with my new stuff that I bought from Greece that is not available in Macedonia was constitutive of me. And this is actually the spark, the initial ignition for my interest in consumerism and materiality. Indeed, how these material objects create worlds of, you know, feeling powerful and feeling somehow superior among your peers, you know, because you went to Greece and you bought this nice stuff and some clothes and some shoes, and this was really an important, even a constitutive thing for a child. Maybe, yeah, because I was from a lower class family, so that was meaningful for me. But I think for most people who grew up in Yugoslavia, and actually the same happened for people in Croatia, but they would go in Trieste or in Graz, you know, crossing the border. So consumerism really carries a lot of this, I would say, alterity, Lacanian, you know, desiring element that is so provocative to me and interesting.
Thanks a lot for your answer. Thanks.
Thank you for the question.
Okay. Please feel free to raise hand or just take the floor. Any other questions or comments? Fotini, yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Rozita, for this wonderful presentation. And I will continue with consumerism and the question by Dimitris, raised by Dimitris. And maybe in my eyes, I see, okay, you mentioned the Lacanian desire as a field for interpretation of these practices by Vasilis and other Greek women from Thessaloniki. So I'm thinking, and you mentioned also your own experience when you were a child in Yugoslavia. I'm thinking that crossing the borders, maybe I would love to have your comment on this. Give to people who are suffering from broken subjectivities to reconstitute their own selves by this acting. So I feel the same when I was traveling and crossing the border during the crisis, and I went to your place. I was so happy to buy things in very good prices, and I was so proud in 2018 when I did that. And I like it very much. So I think, how do you compare this attitude of consumers with the other attitude of Vasilis, for instance, who is going to the casino to have special services and special treatment under this neo-colonial modality? This, I think, in my eyes, we should maybe separate the two.
No, I agree. Yes, I agree with you. Desires are not monolithic and unitary. They're different. And what you said, people with broken subjectivities who need to heal themselves. But I think that subjectivity is broken by definition, according to Lacan. We are all, in a way, victims, or we are all holders of some broken, kind of inconsistent, fractured, senses of self that never reunite and never heal. And that's why we find satisfaction of desire in so many different realms and places, So I would agree with you that the Vasilis' desire to feel pampered, to feel, transposed in a different reality where he feels important and has a sense of different self, is not the same as the one that Sophia has when she goes and plans, running to the farmer's market, the hairdresser, dental office, everything is structured. It's different, but it's nonetheless desire, something that propels you, that really engenders movement and sense of, action. I mean, to me, that's what desire is, something that in a way allows us people to, intentionally or unintentionally, deal with different, let's say, aspects and fractures and voids in our lives. So, and that's why I find ethnographic research and anthropological fieldwork so powerful, because you can really, kind of zoom on to these individual desires and then try to dig out or, weave the larger picture, which is inevitably there. We are all products of our own individual desires, family histories, context, but also of our own national and political and transnational dimensions. So really, methodologically, for me, it's so, and intellectually, it's so provocative to try to find this multi-layered kind of pillars or, loci of desire. It's really, it's the fundamental, it's the masterpiece of our research, trying to get into that. And I must say that I have felt that I failed, because there were so many methodological constraints. I couldn't take photos, I couldn't talk to this, I wasn't allowed to do these things, changed, the corona, there's so many external constraints and hurdles that affect our research. But nonetheless, we aspire and we try to find, to kind of diagnose, to dig out these multi-layered, desirous, actions and practices, and to describe them, to connect them, to theorize, to find the different overlapping epistemologies. That's why, for me, ethnography and anthropology is so superior compared to, and I am biased here, but compared to political scientists or international relations, people who just, describe this other top-down institutional aspect of the conflict between North Macedonia and Greece, the Prespa agreement. There's so much more to this in the everyday life that deserves to be, analyzed and captured. And consumption and desire and materiality and borders, they are the best places to do that.
Okay, thank you. After I have another question, but let's give the floor to other people. I see Theocharis Papadakis.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. It's not so much a question as an idea towards Rozita. It seems that the people that do the marketing in these parlors, in the casino, they seem to be doing their marketing research seems to be like novice, let's say, ethnography, trying to understand the needs of the Greek customers and sort of offering them explicitly, although I'm sure they don't put it in those terms, this colonial sort of experience. And I think it would be very interesting to speak to these people, to see how they have identified the needs of the Greek customers, the post-crisis, and in general with the whole nationalist divide between Macedonia and Greece. I think it's very interesting, the work they have done in order to come to offer such a customer experience. Also, I sort of feel it's amazing how you can convince a proud Macedonian as an employee to be able to put aside their own identity and ethnicity in order to be able to offer such a service, and in the name of offering that service. That's all. Again, very impressed from your work, food for thought for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the comment. It's yes, I agree with you. It's but this is really such a formalized kind of endeavor in the marketing profession. You know, this is so taken into account to target or to aim at particular, you know, social groups, you know, to make people feel that they, you know, are superior, that they are free, that they become someone else. This is really so well kind of developed in the marketing realm profession that I was quite amazed. And you're right, I need to do follow up on this and read more on the marketing strategies and how to, you know, take into account different class or social positions and gender, and to develop specific programs on how to target clients and customers. That is very successful. I agree with you. So thank you for that suggestion. Yes.
Γιώργος Μανωτάκης.
Hello, I found your presentation great, and I think it's more of a comment than a question, but I found very interesting how the desire is in a sense manifested by crossing the border, and I was thinking of how this can be a shift of social role, like a role play. And I wanted to ask you if you are familiar with the situation in Nova Gorica and Gorizia in Slovenia. Yeah. Because I was there and I did some research with my university for the masters. And what is interesting is how the roles were shifted, because during Yugoslavia, Slovenians in Nova Gorica, a new socialist city, were importing and smuggling, better say, things from Italy, and this was deemed a great feat. But after the fall of Yugoslavia and when Slovenia joined Schengen, yeah, now no Slovenians go to Italy, but Italians opened Italian casinos in Slovenia and they go and gamble there because of taxation. And how during the passage of 30 years, the desire has shifted between two different cities next to the border. If you are...
Thank you. I have read some work on this by Andrea Pisac. You know, she did research on this border, especially in the casino area, and it's indeed a reversal, you know, kind of a different dynamic, because Italy was such a destination for consumerism during Yugoslavia, you know, not only for people from Slovenia, but Croatia and also, you know, Montenegro, again, across the Adriatic Sea, you know, and because of the fashionable and stylish, you know, promotion of Italian sense of aesthetics, you know, Italy, Trieste was really a powerful landmark for consumerism for Yugoslavia. But you're right. I mean, I think it would be very useful to have kind of a comparative study on these border regions, you know, of former Yugoslavia, but not only former Yugoslavia, again, Slovakia, Austria, or Slovakia, Hungary, again, at the border crossing, which doesn't exist. I mean, cars don't stop, but yet there are casinos and there is sprouting emergence of this kind of a desirous, materiality outlook. So it is because of taxations. It's about crossing, going on the other side, the alterity, as I mentioned earlier, the Lacanian kind of dynamic. But yeah, I think I think it would be really interesting to do a comparative, like a team, maybe an ERC or maybe some Horizon project on different border regions, where there would be a teamwork on how these dynamics work, and whether we would come with a conclusion that it is about, some kind of inherent desirous kind of Lacanian subjective, broken subjectivity that we try to fix, or is it really the location and the political economic circumstances that create and determine how the border looks and what kind of desires are generated? It would be really a fascinating ethnography, comparative study. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Rozita. Anyone else? Fotini, yes, you can continue.
So I would love to go back to your remark that ethnography, how important is ethnography as a methodology, and so to stress the comparative privilege of the ethnographic writing. And because we have students, PhD candidates with us, I would love from you to elaborate a little bit more on ethnographic vignettes as a modality to discuss through these ethnographic vignettes. Can you do it a little bit? How have you done in your ethnography?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for this, Fotini, but this is like the most obvious and yet the most difficult aspect of our work, It's how this never resolving endless dilemma, how to reconcile ethnography or empirical research with theoretical or epistemological kind of larger context. This is at the core of what we do, and it's so difficult. So guys, do not be discouraged or think that it's your deficiency or problem. This is at the crux of how we, in anthropology, in ethnography, in social sciences as well, good, rigorous kind of analytical approach to social sciences, how one needs to reconcile the importance and the relevance of this very empirical ethnographic approach. Individual people, they do matter. Just abstracting, formalizing, and talking about the larger, super or micro elements just erases what is the flesh of our research, individual experiences. But remaining only within this realm of individual experiences is also devastating, because then we just describe individual experiences, or we are confined within this kind of documentation or cataloging, the way it was done in the, I don't know, the folklore or ethnographic or ethnological studies, that the way I was trained in Skopje in the early 90s, you just describe the rituals of childbirth or marriage rituals, but where are the larger contexts, and where is the theoretical rigor, and how do we connect these different levels of what's happening? Because so much can be excavated, dug out from individual experiences, and this is something that is not easy, really. It's difficult, but it is also the most rewarding and, I would say, intellectually successful thing we can do, bridging the ethnography or the empirical work with the theoretical, epistemological, methodological issues that are maybe more, let's say, sterile and maybe not so engaging, but nonetheless are crucial in how we write. This is about writing. I think for most of us, I don't know if Fotini, Janos would agree, the main challenge is, after the great field work you did, you sit down and you need to write this up. Writing up is really the challenge. And then you're faced with language, and you're faced with voices of the people you talk to, how to convey them, how to negotiate between your own positionality, the theoretical aspects. So it's such a complex process, and it's not an easy one. And that's why for you guys who are in the at the stage of writing up your PhDs, it's a real struggle. It's a struggle with language, with the with the formulating ideas and then going into these different levels of writing that are that can be devastating in terms of feeling that you failed. I mean, I had so often this feeling that I just am not able to convey the research that all this fantastic empirical stuff, all these notebooks and everything, recordings I had, that when you write them up in a proper form, and by proper I mean when you bring in theory and when you bring analysis that is not just descriptive and empirical and ethnographic, it doesn't look right. So you do another draft and you do another draft. It's an endless process. It's a very painful process, but that's how it is. It's not that you fail. That's how it is. It's a broken process, to use Fotini's broken subjectivity. Writing language is broken. We are confined within an idiom of language that is so powerful and yet so, in a way, deficient in what it allows us to do. It's again a very Lacanian, I'm sorry about that, but it is about, language that has power on its own and overwhelms you. And I remember when I was writing my PhD, I had a wonderful outline and just didn't fit with my findings after the field work. And I had to redefine, and I felt so shaken because the outline gives you sense of security and systematism and you feel good, but it's not the right thing, and you have to erase it and dismiss it and write a new one, and it doesn't feel right, and then you do it again. So it's an endless painful process of trying to get there. You never get there really, but at least you try, and that's an ongoing continuous struggle with writing and language and trying to get things right. I mean, to me, this is my slogan: getting things right as much as I can. So
yes, thank you, Rozita. Thank you for this
but
comment.
this is my own personal misery and problems in trying to produce things that I think are good, and then eventually you realize, but they're shit, they're not good. But that's how it is.
Of course.
Because I think we would be fundamentally wrong and misled if you think, wow, it's a great work I've done. I mean, this is really, I tell that to my student, this is a absolutely positive sign of failure if you feel that you've done a fantastic job, because you have to feel miserable, you have to feel as if you're failing. That's how the process works.
Thank you, Rozita. Our
Thank you,
students are
Rozita.
grateful, I think.
Well, Christina Grammatikopoulou has written a comment in the chat, which maybe we should talk about, unless she wants to just speak for herself because she's attending. Christina.
Oh, yeah, well, sorry for the message. It's just a bit noisy here. And I just left a message that I got some childhood memories from our talk, from people coming to the coastal cities of Greece with products, and we would buy camping gear and things like that from them. And or some, I don't know, it's too noisy, but you get the picture. They would have like the caravan full of things, and we would buy things, and they would finance their holiday that way. So that's what, yes.
I know about this so well. These were called tomato tourists, So it's not only that they didn't consume anything from in Greece, but they brought everything from their, homelands, whether Yugoslavia or Poland, and they would even sell and finance their holidays. So, really very inventive ways of how to
How did you call it this? Tomato holidays?
Tomato tourists. So tourists who bring their own tomatoes, they don't buy anything local, because it's much cheaper to stack your car with food, you bring literally everything. And that was the expression in Yugoslavia all over. paradise turisti. Paradise is the Serbian word for tomatoes. So, you know, this is a lower class, you know, tourists who go to usually camping sites and bring everything with themselves. So, but these Polish markets, you know, at parking lots where Polish people would sell different small kitchen items or some clothing or some, you know, amber jewelry. These are so familiar. We used to hang out at those. It was really fun. So thank you for that, Christina.
Any other comment? Okay, since I don't see any other hand, let me also just ask a question, Rozita. Well, of course, listening to you, I was thinking of the sense of superiority Greeks had in the early 90s, crossing borders and going to, you know, the post-socialist Yugoslavia, Macedonia at that time, with the sense of, exactly as you also mentioned, the European, the financially powerful country, etc., and everything. This was coming up very often throughout all these years. It changed a little bit, as you also mentioned, after the financial crisis of the 2009, 2010, 11 in Greece, but it still is the case. I also remember that being a border native, having grown up in Florida, that until the late 80s, 1980s, we were eager to visit Bitola from our side there, you know, to buy Adidas products, which we didn't have in Greece. Bananas is also very exotic, you know, as a fruit, which it was very expensive at that time. And also buy chocolate products from Kraš, the now Croatian.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, well, I was just wondering. You didn't focus very much on this in your presentation, but maybe you could take us into your ethnographic material. Of course, you mentioned the Prespa agreement really is a point which has changed a lot the things, but still, even now. I was wondering if you came across ethnographically, if you meet any people from Greece, or also the people who worked in the casinos, about those people. And I'm talking not generally about Greek citizens, but I'm talking more about those Greeks who might culturally or ethnically or nationally feel, you know, close to the Macedonian identity, speak Macedonian, which they have a different attitude crossing the border. It's for them more like moving around a very familiar area. And I'm sure, at least to the extent I know, that those people speaking the language, they make it very quickly evident that you know, we're not the Greeks. We live in Greece, but you know, we don't see you as you probably think. So if you have any ethnographic material about this.
Thank you for this comment, Janos, because indeed, Sofia, we led our conversations in, you know, Macedonian or Slavic language, because
In Macedonian, yeah.
In Macedonian, because she, her origins are. Her grandparents spoke at home fluent, you know, that's the language that she grew up with. And she told me that unfortunately her children don't speak it anymore. She didn't insist on them learning the language. And when I asked her whether that makes a difference in going, you know, often to Georgia and to Macedonia, she said that, you know, she wasn't comfortable about talking about this, you know. She said the present is too complicated and I cannot dwell on to the past, you know. I just want to, it was the elephant in the room often, you know. I would try to make some hints or ask things, but she wasn't comfortable in entertaining that subject, let's say. She just felt that going into the past. There were no, let's say, any patriotic or emotional attachments. She was glad she knows the language because it helped her with the practical aspects at the farmers market, at the places where people didn't speak Greek. But other than that, no. And then I met people who, I met through Vaskopoulos Pavlos, his group of people connected who are openly vocal about their Macedonian identity, and they are active about it, and they try to, in a way promote it, but also to reframe it in a kind of human rights, discourse that is universal. So, and yeah, with them we talked about this because it's their political agenda in a way. So, yeah, I mean, and then also in Bitola, at the dental, one of the dental practices, the guy, the dentist, he told me that he has had customers from, the Florina area who come to fix their teeth in his practice, and that they are of Slavic origins, Macedonian origins, and that they've maintained really close relationships, and now they visit each other for different baptism and celebrations of, birthdays and Slava and all these different family celebrations. So, it's people, yeah, I think it's a different subject positions that they occupy, and they relate to their origins or their ethnic or national kind of attachments differently. And I never tried to push forth or to insist Sophia to tell me about, her Macedonian origins or her family history, her grandparents, why she decided not to teach her children to speak the language. It's just because she wasn't talkative about it. I tried once, twice. When she refused, I just let it go. That's all I could do, although I was curious. But I realized that people occupy or they relate differently to their own legacy, histories, and to how they want to position themselves. And it's perfectly legitimate, so. But indeed, and then I hear all these very romantic and over celebrated notions of Makedonci, from which is also, it doesn't make me feel comfortable. So I just yeah, when I see it's conspicuous, and often I notice or I detect whether it's important or not by silences. When people don't want to talk about something, I realize that, okay, this is where the, let's say, trauma lies, this is what's really important. And in Sophia's case, she didn't want to talk about it. I knew it's obviously meaningful. Maybe she feels, that she's disloyal or she's betraying something, but then she didn't want to talk, and that was what I had to respect. So indeed.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Right. I think we can conclude here our section. So, Rozita, thank you so much on behalf of our lab. Great to have you. We thank everyone who attended this event. So, our next, you will be informed about our next lecture, which is going to be about Georgia. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank
you, Rozita.
Thank you very much for the comments.
Thank you, Rozita.
Patience. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I hope to see you in person sometime.
See you soon.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Hopefully. Bye.